Thank you for being here. I am so excited for today's conversation. It is our last office hours session of the year. And so I want to actually start by saying thank you. I am so just honored that you have decided to let me be a small part of your career journey. I launched this Patreon in June, and I was really excited about trying to find a way to make career coaching more accessible from both price point perspective, but also making it more inclusive. And this has been such a really wonderful journey to toward that goal. And so thank you all so much for being here. And I hope that this space continues to be one where you can feel safe to ask all of your questions and to get the kind of support that will help you move forward. And I'm looking forward so much to helping you throughout the rest of the month, of course, but into the new year as well. And so with that said, let's go ahead and talk about New Year stuff, right? So it definitely is a time of year where we start looking backward, thinking about, what did I do this year? And there are ways to do that are healthy and help you build momentum and help you move forward. And there are ways to do that can be sort of dispiriting. We want to go ahead and be honest about reflecting on the areas where we were able to make achievements and to grow, and the good things that happened where we would consider wins and achievements. And we want to be generous with ourselves about taking those wins, but also we do want to take away what are the areas where we might have done things differently, if we, with hindsight, where there were missed opportunities that we wish we might have been able to take advantage of. And instead of beating ourselves up about those potential misses, trying to find the lessons that we can bring into the new year. How can we, at the time you made the best decisions that you could with the skills and the options and the understanding that you had at the time, but now that you have that hindsight, are there things that you want to do differently going forward? And so, yes, we want to think about our wins. We want to celebrate them. We want to be generous with ourselves as we celebrate our wins. And we definitely want to be honest with ourselves, but also kind with ourselves about our misses. And doing that reflection should help us set some goals for the next year. It is really important for us to, if you're going to have a really solid next year in terms of your career, if you can start the year off with some sort of understanding of what you want to achieve, and you can hold on to that throughout the year, it's going to allow you to be more strategic, more focused, and more proactive as you move through it. And so obviously none of that happens if we don't have an action plan that helps you move forward. And so today's conversation, we're going to talk about how to set good goals and also how to put together a sustainable action plan so that you can hold on to that goal throughout the year. We don't want this to be one of those New Year's resolutions that we forget about by like January 15th. We want this to be a goal that you are setting for your career that you are going to be able to hold on to and call back to throughout the year so that you are actually able to achieve it. And so let's talk about New Year's resolutions specifically. Now, generally, these reasons why New Year's resolutions generally don't work. It's not because something about New Year's resolutions are bad. It's about the fact that most of the time when we set these goals, we don't set them in a way that sets ourselves up for success. And so if we are talking about this within a career context, it's going to be really important for us to set goals that are not binary. That's probably the biggest mistake that people make, is that they set binary goals where you are either you did the thing or you didn't do the thing. You had a perfect streak or you didn't have a perfect streak. That's really hard for you to, like, nobody's life is so perfect that they can just be consistent about something for, an entire year. That's really, really difficult to come by. It's holding yourself to an impossible standard. And so those binary goals are really difficult. And so if you do have a binary goal, something like finding another job, we want to make sure that there are sub goals underneath that allow you to focus on wins that are not just that binary goal. The same thing is true for really rigid goals, especially if your goals are quantifiable in some way. If you want to reach a certain point in your compensation, that can be very rigid, where it can make it a little bit more challenging for you to feel like you succeeded if you get close, but not quite. And so we don't want super rigid goals. And then the other thing that's really important is to make sure that your goals are specific. A lot of times New Year's resolutions are very vague. I want to have the best year ever. I want to be more healthy. healthy. I want to be more social. I want to be more X. And that's really vague. If we can make it really specific in the way what you're trying to achieve and why and how, it puts you in a position where you know what to do on a regular basis, regardless of what's happening around you. And then another really important one that I want to sort of jump down to in our list is goals that are extrinsically motivated versus intrinsically motivated. Are you setting a goal because it seems like the goal you're supposed to have, or because that's the goal that everyone else seems to have, or that's the goal that people are just kind of talking about? Or are you setting that goal because it is important to you as an individual, for you as a professional? If one of those is you're going to run out of gas really fast, and one of those is going to be much more sustainable for you. And so if your goals are connected to your own personal values and priorities, if they are connected to your needs and aspirations versus sort of things that are happening outside of yourself, comparisonitis, cultural conditioning, you're way more likely to persevere through the challenges that inevitably come up when we are working toward a goal. And then the last thing that I want to talk about, I want to sort of combine these the last two together, is the importance of setting up systems for yourself, so that when you're making this change, where you're introducing new behaviors that are going to help you work toward a goal, that you're creating some sort of system to give you momentum behind that, and also to help you through challenges if you do end up with one. And so that is certainly going to be like people in your life. That could be friends, that could be family members, it could be members of your professional network, it could be members of this group, it could be me, folks who will help you stay accountable, who will give expertise and advice when necessary, and also, just give you a pep talk if you need one. And then, of course, it's really important for you to set up a system for yourself where you are checking in on your progress. You might not be like a hardcore tracker where you're like a spreadsheet person like myself, where you're going to want to log all of your activities or something like that. But even if it's just something as simple as having a particular time on the calendar regularly, where you just take a moment to think about, is this goal still right for me? Am I still working toward it? Have I done well over the last period? Is there anything that I'd like to do differently in the next period? That's going to allow you to keep building that momentum. And so the last thing that I want to talk about today are some of the things that you can do if your goal right now is in New Year's resolution land, where it's binary or it's vague or it is extrinsically motivated. What are the things that you can do or it's lacking an action plan? What are the things that you can do to make your career goal into a goal that's actually going to be achievable for you, and also to translate that goal into an action plan that is going to be sustainable over the year, and that's going to allow you to achieve that goal in the end. And so I'm just going to talk about a couple of these, but I really encourage you to take some time with this slide and really play with it if you find that your goals are maybe not where you'd like for them to be. The first one that is really going to be helpful in making your goal clearer and more specific is actually describing it to another person. And so that person could be me. If you are on the partner tier and you have access to the coaching app, I would love for you to tell me about your goal, because just saying it out loud and then obviously having someone who can give you some feedback is going to be really helpful. But if you can't really describe the goal specifically to another person, there's probably room to make it more specific. And just thinking through, how can I make this clearer if I was describing it to another person, is going to help you make it clearer for yourself. Another thing that can be helpful is breaking it into milestones. And that's kind of our second two bullets put together. If you're able to identify 4, 6, or 12 milestones quarterly, every 2 months, or every month, those are going to be really great ways for you to pull out the most important parts of the goal, and then also break your big goal into smaller pieces that don't feel as overwhelming. If you can think of ways to break it into these smaller pieces and plot those to a calendar, that's going to both make it more specific and clear, but also is going to break it into smaller pieces so it doesn't feel so overwhelming. And that can be a really big reason why people give up on the goals that they set at the beginning of the year. Another thing that is incredibly important, and I really, really recommend that you write this down, is pulling out specific actions that help you move toward your goal. One of the big challenges that I work with a lot of my clients is that they'll have a goal or related to their career that we're working on together. And when they sit down to do something, they have the motivation and they have the time to sit down and do something for their goal. They don't know what to do. And they have this, they're not really sure where to start. And so writing down the actions that can help you move forward, and especially having some variance in those actions. Are these things that need to be done on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis? In an ideal world, do you have options that can be done in 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour? Those are all having lots of options that are different from each other are going to make it a lot easier for you to make sure that you're taking action consistently, because it's not about perfection, it's about consistency, and which is part of the reason why those binary goals are really ones that we want to get away from. There are going to be times when you're sick and you really can only spend maybe a couple minutes thinking about about career stuff. You don't have any time or capacity or energy to actually do things. And so giving yourself permission to have that flexibility, and then also giving yourself some options of, well, I know that like, even though I want to do something today and I'm not feeling that good, I know I can read an article from this publication that I identified back when I was planning my goal. We want to set you up to be able to do something consistently, regardless of what's going on in your context. And then another thing that's really important that we kind of touched on is making sure that your goal is flexible. When life happens, like we have great hopes for next year, but we don't actually know what's going to happen. And finding ways to think about our goal as being flexible so that we can scale it down or scale it up if life things happen that create opportunities or reduce our capacity, so that we're still making some progress, and also so that we can be kind to ourselves as our circumstances change. And so if you find that your time resources or your money resources or your energy resources or your relational social resources are not as available as you would like them to be as you move towards your career goal, it's really important for it to be flexible enough. And so both the goal itself and your action plan to be flexible enough that you can scale things down, even if it's just temporarily, so that you can keep going. Because at the end of the day, the thing that we want to avoid by asking these questions is you giving up. Because as long as you're doing something to move forward, you are making progress. There's a certain amount of effort, there's a certain amount of energy, a certain amount of time, a certain amount of energy that is going to get you to your goal. And as long as you are putting a little bit of money in the bank, you are eventually going to get to that point. But if for some reason, because your goal is not where it should be, or because your action plan isn't quite where it should be, you aren't able to come back to the work because of that, lack of clarity about what you're trying to accomplish or how you're trying to get there, then you might just stop, and then you definitely want to achieve your goal. And so I do encourage you to take some time to sit down and think about what you'd like your next goal to be for 2024. Make sure that it is clear, specific, and focused, that you're giving yourself lots of ways to move forward on that so that you can pull from the thing that is most appropriate for the resources that you have at the time. And then, of course, if you need help, I'm here for you. And so that's it for today's lesson. Quick one today. I'm really looking forward to being here for everyone's questions. And I see that we have one in the chat. I'm going to grab that one first.